What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm going to be talking spoiler-free about Superman 2025. This one stars David Corenswet, Nicholas Hoult, Rachel Brosnahan. Superman, a journalist in Metropolis, embarks on a journey to reconcile his Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing as Clark Kent. I'm a big fan of Superman. This is one of my favorite DC Comics superheroes next to Batman. I probably like him more than Batman because I think that there's some interesting things you can do with Superman, as the previous movies have shown. We've been feeding off the Donner movies for so long, and then Zack Snyder came along with his Man of Steel movie that wasn't all that well received, and I think it's just okay. But if he had actually done a full-on, full-blown solo Superman trilogy, I would have been really interested to see what he brings, but it was just time. We just needed something new, something fresh, something that felt more in the vein of Superman, that inspired hope in such a bleak world today. And so James Gunn tried to bring that to the table with this movie. And I think, in terms of bringing the hope and inspiration in such a bleak world today, James Gunn really succeeds. This is a really fun movie. It's a very comic book filled movie. To its detriment, it is overstuffed, it is messy. There are elements of this movie that don't necessarily work, but this is the most fun I've had watching a Superman movie in quite some time, and I think it's the best Superman movie since Superman 78. What James Gunn does really well here is that he really does capture that tone of hope and inspiration in a world that feels so bleak. You can look up to David Corenswet, who is fantastic as both Clark Kent and Superman, and look at him and be like, that's a man that inspires hope. Whenever you see Superman in this movie flying by, he's saving people. He's saving animals. It has this comic booky feel to it. While there is a lot going on in this movie, this feels like it was a comic book that leapt right off the pages of the comic book and translated itself onto the big screen. I feel like I was just flipping through a comic book that I was watching instead of reading, turning pages, and the whole movie felt like comic book panels. To the people that say that this movie looks ugly, I really don't think so. I thought that this felt very bright and colorful. There are, of course, some scenes of CGI that don't necessarily work. There's the CGI baby that I just wanted to punt off the screen. Get this thing out of here. It looks awful. I don't need it here. But other than a few moments like that, I mean, obviously that big kaiju thing that he fights in the trailer, yeah, that thing is CGI'd. But the rest of the movie doesn't look as ugly as The Flash, since it is the same cinematographer as The Flash. It's also the same cinematographer, I believe, as Guardians 2, or at least Guardians 3. And Guardians 3 didn't look ugly at all. So I don't know why people are just basing their opinions off of clips and trailers and small parts of the movies that they've seen online. I really don't get it. Rachel Brosnahan, I thought, was really good as Lois Lane. Not my favorite Lois Lane. My favorite Lois Lane still remains Erica Durance from Smallville. And I don't think she matches Margot Kidder, but she is leagues better than Amy Adams, leagues better than Kate Bosworth. Haven't seen a lot of Elizabeth Tulloch. Think she's a lot better than Terry Hatcher. This felt like Lois Lane to me, like trying to get the scoop on everything, snarky, sassy comments that have been missing from a live action Lois Lane, at least in the movies, for a long time now. And Rachel Brosnahan was perfectly cast for that. When she was cast as Lois Lane, I was like, that is perfect, because she is so good in The Marvelous Miss Maisel, and she really captures the spirits of what the character should embody. Let's talk Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. Probably the most menacing Lex has been on screen. I really liked his interactions here with David Corenswet as Superman, and Lex and Superman's interactions the first time that they've really met in this universe. Nicholas Hoult did a really good job. I like that he wasn't really doing a carbon copy of Gene Hackman or Michael Rosenbaum, but he took inspiration from both and kind of mixed them together without ripping them off. And Lex is just a massive, massive madman in this movie, as Lex Luthor should be. He should not be some pipsqueak pulling out Jolly Ranchers, essentially just being a Mark Zuckerberg Facebook villain. And I was really happy that somebody finally understood what Lex Luthor should be. And for the most part, I was on board with what Lex's plan was. They were taking a plot line. It was essentially a redo of a plot line from a previous Superman movie. They were doing it better. They were trying to be like, hey, we can do this better. And I thought they actually did do it better. But there's one aspect of his plan that I didn't necessarily like. And I think it's because we've seen it a few times already, even though we haven't seen it for quite a while in the movies. It was just one of those things where I felt like that's paying too much of a tribute to the Donner movies, and I could have done away with that. Where I think that this movie falters a lot is probably the first 30 or so minutes. It's setting up so much. This movie feels overstuffed in those first 30 minutes. It feels overplotted. It feels like because we're not getting an origin story for Superman, which I am happy about because I don't need to see it again. It feels like you're missing parts of this world. Like it's this world that is trying to build itself out. Like it's a pre-existing superhero world that already exists, but the us as the audience don't really know about this world, so it's trying to build that out. Who's in this world? There's something going on in terms of the plot. There's a lot of characters in here, like the Justice Gang, Guy Gardner as Green Lantern, Hawk Girl, Mr. Terrific. There's a lot that it is trying to juggle in the first 30 minutes, so sometimes it feels really messy. It feels really jumbled, but once it finds its footing, once it gets to Superman being incarcerated in this type of prison that I will talk about in a spoiler review, if I do a spoiler review, I think the movie really takes off. And that's where I felt like it felt very comic booky and it felt very fun. It felt very hopeful and inspiring. But those first 30 minutes where it is trying to establish a new DC universe, it just feels so messy because it's the first movie. There's no origin story. So we have to throw other superheroes in here, which is going to overstuff the plot, which is going to overstuff how many characters are in the movie. And it just feels like you're trying to play catch up, or it feels like there's a movie that should have been released that you didn't see yet. Like it feels like there's a whole nother movie in there that we're missing. It was kind of challenging for a little bit to try and pick up exactly what was happening. And for the first 20 minutes or so, I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm feeling this really. But I think once you get past that 20-minute to 30-minute mark, movie takes off. And I felt it to be a very fun, light and breezy superhero movie. I think a superhero movie that we need right now. Something that inspires hope, something that inspires inspiration, something that feels like I can look up to somebody in a world that feels so down and bleak, even in real life. And the movie really captured that tone. This is a very solid start for a new DC universe. And I'm really excited to see what James Gunn, Peter Safran, and the rest of the writers and directors that they're working with and the actors have in store for us. I wanted to walk out of this wanting more. And I do. Despite that first 30 minutes that feels overstuffed and overplotted and very messy, you can still have that and still be a good movie. And Superman is a good movie. It's not as good as I was hoping it would be, but it is still a solid movie, a solid start, and a really fun start. Some campiness, some comic booky stuff that I think really makes Superman Superman. I enjoyed Superman with 3/4 of a bucket of popcorn. So if you guys have seen the new Superman movie, let me know what you think of it in the comments below. I will leave my link to my website in the description below as well. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. My name is Alex Madden, and I will see you at the movies somewhere.